Eclipses. Darkness at noon or midnight. Imagine being outside on a Sunday at noon and seeing the world become dark all around you, even though there is not a single cloud in the sky. Or imagine watching the full moon slowly change the milky white to a spooky blood red color. Strange events such as these happen during eclipses. Eclipses are amazing events that have caused wonder, fear, and excitement throughout history. During a solar eclipse, the moon blocks out the sun. During a lunar eclipse, the moon changes color as it passes through Earth's shadow. Eclipses in history. Eclipses can be frightening events if you don't know what caused them. Long ago, people were afraid of eclipses and considered them to be bad omens. Big people in ancient China thought the sun was being eaten by a dragon during solar eclipses. They bandaged on drums and pots to scare the dragon away. Some ancient people in Greece thought there might be a connection between earthquakes and eclipses, but there is no link between the two events. Some eclipses may even have changed the course of history. One such event occurred in the Middle East in the 6th century BC. Two groups of people, the Lydians and the Medes, had been fighting a war for 5 years. On May 28, 585 BC, the armies were engaged in a fierce battle when suddenly a total eclipse turned day into night. The armies were so frightened by the eclipses that they laid down their weapons and agreed to make peace. Ancient people such as the Chinese, Greeks, Babylonians, and Egyptians studied eclipses. They eventually learned that eclipses were natural events. There were no dragon or other monster involved. However, knowledge about what really caused eclipses spread slowly. Eclipses are about shadows. We know how that eclipses happen when Earth is moon and the sun line up in space. An eclipse is nothing more than a really big shadow. Just as you cast a shadow on the ground when you stand outside on a sunny day, Earth and its moon cast shadows in space. And what an eclipse looks like depends on where you watch it from. If you were standing on the surface of the moon during a lunar eclipse, you would see the Earth ringed by red light as it blocked out the sun. But from Earth, a lunar eclipse look much different. If you watch a lunar eclipse from Earth, you will see the full moon slowly go dark as it passes through Earth's shadow. That is because the moon is only bright when it reflects the light of the sun, something it can do when Earth gets in the way. Why the moon turned red? If Earth had no atmosphere, the moon would go completely dark during a total lunar eclipse. But Earth does have an atmosphere, and the light from the sun passes through it. Most of that light strikes Earth's surface and is blocked, but some light rays pass through the atmosphere without hitting the planet's surface. Sunlight is made up of many colors that blend together to form white light. The atmosphere absorbs most of the blue light in the sun rays, but red light passes through the atmosphere and is scattered before passing back out into space. Some of that light strikes the moon and give it a spooky appearance. The moon usually turns a reddish color, but it can also be orange, yellow, or brown. The color depends on the amount of dust and clouds in Earth's atmosphere. Total lunar eclipses happen fairly frequently. There can be as many as three in a year, but in some years there are none. It all depends on the changing positions of the moon and Earth, and because lunar eclipses are visible from the entire side of Earth where it's nightmare. You will probably have many chances to see one near where you live. Lunar eclipses are perfectly safe to watch and can be safely viewed through binoculars or telescopes. The length of time that the moon is in full shadow during a total eclipse varies anywhere from about 30 minutes to more than an hour. The sun blotted out. The other type of eclipses is the other type of eclipses is the solar eclipses. During a solar eclipse, the positions of the moon and earth are just the opposite of their position during a lunar eclipse. The sun is about 400 times larger than the moon, but it is also about 400 times as far away from Earth. This happened coincidence of natural means that seen from Earth, the circular disk of the moon is just the right side to block out the sun. When the moon blocks the light from the main part of the sun outer part, called the corona, becomes visible. The hot gases of the corona glow brightly around the obscure disk of the sun. During a solar eclipse, the moon casts a double shadow on Earth. People inside the dark center shadow see a total eclipse, in which the entire disk of the sun is blocked for a time. Inside the lighter outer shadow part of the sun disk is clearly visible during a partial eclipse. Beyond the lighter shadow, people see no eclipse at all. Because the moon orbit around Earth is not a perfect circle, the moon distance from Earth changes. When the moon is farther away, it appears slightly smaller and does not completely block out the sun during an eclipse. The sun distance from a narrow ring around the moon. This is called an annular eclipse. Annular comes from the Latin word meaning ring. The length of a total solar eclipse varies from one eclipse to another and also depends on where you view it on. The longest time that people can see the sun totally darkened is about 7.5 minutes. People have far fewer chances to see solar eclipses than lunar eclipses. Solar eclipses happen in one form or another somewhere on Earth, about once every 18 months. However, many solar eclipses occur over open oceans or in the polar regions, so very few people get to see them. Also, because the moon darker center shadow on Earth is never more than 269 kilometers wide. The chance of your area being in the path of a total eclipse is very small. Each particular spot on Earth experiences a total solar eclipse just once every 370 years on average. For that reason, if you want to see a total solar eclipse, it is much better to travel to where you know one will happen than to wait for one to come to you. But how can you tell? But how can you tell when and where the next solar eclipses will happen? Predicting eclipses. Astronomers have tried to predict eclipses since ancient times. Many astronomers in ages past kept careful records of eclipses. They learned that eclipses happen in a long cycle. They also studied how the moon moves around Earth. Their findings helped them predict lunar eclipses with some accuracy. But figuring out when solar eclipses would happen was much more difficult. By about 1,800 years ago, astronomers in China and Greece had learned to predict solar eclipses. One of the most famous of these astronomers was a Greek named Ptolemy. Ptolemy, but Ptolemy had other ancient astronomers could only predict a solar eclipse to within about a month. The first scientist to accurately predict solar eclipses was an English astronomer named Edmund Halley. During his lifetime in an early AD 700s, people knew that Earth orbited the Sun. Knowing the correct position of the Sun, Earth, and Moon made eclipses prediction simple, but it was still difficult. Another English scientist, Isaac Newton, made it easier to predict eclipses. Newton discovered how objects in solar system move. He developed a very detailed theory of gravity. Halley uses Newton's findings to calculate future eclipses. By using computer programming with Newton's laws of gravity, scientists can now predict eclipses far into the future. How to view a solar eclipse safely? 1. You have figured out where you need to be to see a solar eclipse. Your work is not quite done. You need to take some steps to make sure you can watch the eclipses safely because looking directly at the sun can damage your eye. Normally the sun is too bright to look at for very long, and pain makes you look away. But during an eclipse, the brightness that dims, and it is possible to look at the sun without feeling any pain, even while severely damaging your eyes. For this reason, you should never look directly at the sun during an eclipse or at any other time. The safest way to view a solar eclipse is indirectly using a pinhole projector. This simple device focuses the sun rays onto a flat surface where they can be viewed safely. It, it also it also is possible to view solar eclipses safely using special light filters, such as inexpensive, exclusive viewing safety glasses. Even when using these special glasses, you shouldn't look at the sun for very long. Look for a few seconds and then turn away for a few seconds. Be sure to use these glasses only in the company of an adult. You can't be too careful when looking at the sun. Conclusion: eclipses are impressive cosmic events that still inspire away awe in people of all ages around the world. Thanks to science, we now understand the cause of eclipse, eclipse and can predict them with amazing accuracy. But eclipse will probably always feel a little mysterious and magical to those who watch them, just as they did to people thousands of years ago.